Welcome to Channel's Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka from our studios here in London. Coming up on today's show, fresh data has revealed that graduates of the top UK universities are more likely to find work than those from lower-ranked institutions. Diversity and inclusion has always been an uphill battle for Oxbridge, and the realities of being a minority student at Britain's top universities has been documented in a new web series. The director, Anissa Latouche, a filmmaker and geography student at the University of Cambridge, will shortly be joining me from campus to shed more light. And the Africa's Business Heroes Prize competition, sponsored by the Jack Ma Foundation and Alibaba Philanthropy, has just launched its 6th annual continent-wide search for 10 exceptional entrepreneurs who are striving to make a positive impact in their local communities. Zara Bati Boateng, the Managing Director Africa at ABH, will be joining me from Kigali to talk more about the group's impact. Then later, I'll be looking back at some of the biggest business news stories of the week. But first, let's begin the show by taking a look at what's been trending on social media platforms this week. And we begin with LinkedIn. In this post, Nicolas Pompigny-Monyard, founder and chairman of the APO Group, writes about an innovative collaboration between TikTok and the African Union, which seeks to address the urgent need for digital safety across the continent. The partnership aims to educate and empower communities on digital safety, aligning closely with the AU's focus on children's safety in the digital space and the digital transformation strategy for Africa. And on X, the International Fund for Agricultural Development points to the challenges posed by climate change to small-scale family farming. More than 150 representatives from all 5 continents gathered in Spain earlier in the week to discuss the future of family farms in terms of their social value, diversity, inclusion, and the next generation. And then this on Facebook. According to Reuters, the consumer conglomerate giant Unilever plans to spin off its ice cream unit as part of a new 3-year cost-cutting programme. The group is also axing 7,500 jobs, which represents at least 5% of its global workforce. Vaughan Gething has been elected as the new Welsh Labour leader and First Minister of Wales, becoming the first black leader of a European country. The 50-year-old, who has served as the Welsh Health Minister and Economy Minister, will succeed Mark Drakeford when he is formally appointed next week. In other news, speculation of a leadership challenge against the British Prime Minister is growing amid rising discontent on the Tory backbenches. The mood in the Conservative Party has dipped after a challenging week which saw former Deputy Party Chairman Lee Anderson defect to Reform UK. And the government has faced criticism for accepting a £10 million donation from a man accused of making racist comments about the veteran Labour MP Diane Abbott. There have been suggestions that Tory MPs have met to propose replacing Rishi Sunak with Commons leader Penny Mordaunt ahead of the next election. Well, for more on this, I was earlier joined in the studio by our Downing Street correspondent, Simon Pusey. Simon, so it appears as if the race row from last week has faded. It's now been overtaken by leadership tussle, commentary. Is Rishi safe as we head into the next election? Or is he going to be taken out of office?
Well, we've seen in the last few days that Mr. Sunak's allies, supposedly, according to the newspapers, furious that Penny Mordaunt has not distanced herself from reports that she's being lined up as the Unity candidate. And I think we're going to see lots more stories, not just around her, but other people as well. We've also got, obviously, Kemi Badenoch, Nigerian, who's very popular in the Conservative Party. She's taking the opposite stance, saying people should stop speculating, should get behind Rishi Sunak. Right. But then also she seems to be playing it very well, coming out ahead of the Prime Minister sometimes and making statements, including that race row.
Yes.
And then there's many more behind them. But I think we're always going to see this because things are so difficult for the Prime Minister. We are just going to see people, whether they are intentionally or not, people and analysts and newspapers will always think that is what they're doing, is that they're positioning themselves for a leadership bid or contest whenever the Conservatives lose office, or maybe even ahead of an election. I don't think it'll happen ahead of an election. I don't think there's one candidate that really unites the whole Conservative Party, or even that enough people would get behind. But yeah, those are the two sort of strong names at the moment. Penny Mordaunt, who obviously carried the cross at the King's coronation, and then,
very well. She held it for hours, didn't she?
Right. Well, exactly. I don't think that did her any harm on the world stage, because people said she looked very exactly
beautiful. shall we say?
Yeah, and sort of statesman-like, just sort of seemed to be in charge. And then
She's the leader of the House.
Leader of the House, very experienced, very sure of herself when it comes to speech making, as is Kemi Badenoch, who obviously is quite punchy and has a slightly different style. But lots of people seem to like her.
Both serious contenders.
Exactly, those are the two people to watch out for. Also worth mentioning that Vaughan Gething, so this is the Welsh First Minister. He's taken over as Labour Party leader and First Minister, and born in Zambia. So born in Zambia, describes himself as a Welshman born in Zambia, a vet from the Vale of Glamorgan as his father, and a Zambian chicken farmer was his father, and a vet from Glamorgan in South Wales was his mother.
First black male European leader. It's quite
and
big
so
accolade.
It continues in the UK with our leadership. We're talking about race rows quite a lot, and yet we've got such a diverse mix at the top of politics, which I think is something to be proud of. And his parents experienced racism when he moved over to Britain, and he joined the Labour Party at the age of 17. So again, that's a good success story, I think, for diversity in the UK. He's not without a bit of scandal already, accepted a £200,000 donation from a company run by a man twice convicted for environmental offences, and then one of his first interviews, he was said to be a little bit sexist when getting a bit tetchy about. So, I mean, there's always something, right?
There's always a scandal somewhere.
Pick something apart, but worth mentioning Vaughan Gething because the former Labour leader was there for quite a long time.
Mark Drakeford,
and it's going to be interesting to see how Vaughan Gething gets on because, very distinctive in his own way. And he was, like you said, the first black president of the National Union of Students of Wales as well. So many firsts there. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. The Labour Party are struggling in Wales because they've been the party there for a long time, the party in power. But I think returning to England, I think Mr. Rishi Sunak is going to continue these kind of leadership debates and conversations, and there will be more scandal, of course, and there'll be more resignations as we get closer to a potential, election in November.
I'm hearing October.
Right. Are you?
Yeah. What are you thinking?
Okay. Well, I'm not thinking
You're still
May.
thinking December?
I'm thinking early December, but it's up to Rishi Sunak, isn't it?
He's the one person until January 2025.
Right, so you may as well just do that.
He may as well just do that. Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you.
The Africa's Business Heroes Prize competition, sponsored by the Jack Ma Foundation and Alibaba Philanthropy, has just launched its 6th annual continent-wide search for 10 exceptional entrepreneurs who are striving to make a positive impact in their local communities. The philanthropic initiative has grown an ecosystem that enables entrepreneurs to leverage mentorship, networks and funding to accelerate their impact across the continent. For more on this, I'm now being joined by Zara Bati Boateng, the Managing Director of Africa at ABH. Zara joins me from Kigali in Rwanda. Zara Bati Boateng, it's an absolute pleasure speaking with you on Channel's Business Global. The last time I spoke to you was on the ground in Kigali, where, of course, Africa Business Heroes had a huge 5-year event. Congratulations. We are in International Women's Month. 42% of the African entrepreneurs that you have helped over the past 5 years are women. Why is this particular data of so much importance?
It's so important, and thank you. It's so good to connect with you again. Africa has the highest rate of female entrepreneurship in the world. And so it's so important for us that our applicant pool reflects this fact, that so many businesses on the continent are started by women and contribute to economic growth, provide jobs. And so for us, it's important that we are attracting female entrepreneurs who really are driving entrepreneurship in Africa and are providing them with the support, the platform, and the tools to grow.
Absolutely. It's essential, isn't it? Because we know that most African female entrepreneurs are only doing it because they need to, and they are creating such phenomenal businesses that are impacting their communities. We know that it is a struggle, mostly because the continent is very patriarchal. But how do heroes benefit from access to finance and the large support? I know you give a massive prize, but it's not just that, is it? You become part of a family when you are a member of Africa Business Heroes.
Of course. So as you mentioned, we provide grant funds. So our top 10 heroes receive anywhere from $100,000 to $300,000.
Wow.
And that really is such a massive injection of capital. It's a grant, so it's not an investment that they can use to grow their businesses. And we've seen some of our female heroes, for example, leverage those funds to hire more women, to ensure that they are able to support their communities, to expand into new countries. And they've leveraged those grants in very meaningful ways. But beyond that, like you said, once you become a hero, whether you are top 50, 20, or 10, you become part of the ABH community. And we provide many different resources to support our finalists to grow. That ranges from training. So that could be in the form of online training where we have experts from our community provide insights on topics that are very pertinent to entrepreneurs. So that could be financial resilience. It could be how to raise investments. It could be how to expand your business globally. So we have a range of trainings such as these. We also provide networking opportunities. So we're launching something called ABH Local Hubs, which are opportunities for our community members in various countries to gather, where we have various events so they connect with each other, like-minded entrepreneurs. And we believe that will really support entrepreneurs face the challenges of day-to-day running a business. And these are a range of things that we provide. And of course, we provide a massive spotlight. Yeah. So we have the ABH show. We, produce press releases on our heroes, media interviews to tell their story to the world. And that publicity really does help fuel their businesses.
Absolutely. You do tell the story to the world. In fact, we've been telling the ABH story now, goodness, for 5 years here at Channels in London. I was in Kigali, as I said, in November. I was absolutely blown away. It really is phenomenal. The question is, why is Jack Ma and Alibaba doing this? I know, besides ABH, Zara, you have worked with China for several years. You understand their thinking. Why is he doing this?
So it really stems from a personal passion. He visited in 2017, visited Rwanda and Kenya, and was really inspired by the entrepreneurial energy that he felt, the entrepreneurs that he met. And he saw a lot of parallels between Africa's journey and China's journey. He saw a lot of parallels between his own journey as a young entrepreneur and the individuals he was meeting. He could connect with their passion, with their resilience, with the stories that they were telling him. And he really felt that it was important that he gave back and that he supported as well, that there were parallels between, China's trajectory of development and Africa's. And it would be amiss to not provide some kind of support to really have entrepreneurship become a movement, not something that people fall back on as a means of last resort, but really leverage to create change, because he had seen the change it was able to create in China.
Yes, of course. The 6th edition is around the corner. I know you've launched it. Applications are open. I was reading somewhere that you receive about 20,000 applications each time. That is a lot to go through. How do you source through all of these amazing ideas? And talk to us about what you're looking for this year, because, of course, I'm sure millions of our viewers watching will want to apply.
Certainly, and I do hope that they apply. And I know the number can be intimidating, but I do encourage any entrepreneur who has at least 3 years of market traction to apply to our competition. And it's simple to do so. You just go to africabusinessheroes.org. And what do we look for? We're looking for entrepreneurs who are resilient, who are innovative, who have a strong sense of mission, who are passionate about solving a real problem. We look at what the problem entrepreneurs are solving. It's important that it's a large-scale problem. It's a problem that is creating massive pain points for customers and individuals in Africa, and that you have a solution that is competitive, that has some kind of innovation. And this does not mean that it has to be tech-enabled, but rather your solution is addressing the problem in a unique way. So this could be in a cost-efficient way. It could be in the way in which you're distributing your solution, and that it has some competitive advantage.
Zara Betty, Boateng, who is the Managing Director in Africa of Africa's Business Heroes. Thank you so much for your time and insight today. Coming up on Channel's Business Global, fresh data has revealed that graduates of top UK universities are more likely to find work than those from lower-ranked institutions. Diversity and inclusion has always been an uphill battle for Oxbridge, and the realities of being a minority student at Britain's top universities has been documented in a new web series. The director, Anissa Latouche, a filmmaker and geography student at the University of Cambridge, will shortly be joining me from campus to shed more light, and I'll be looking back at some of the biggest business news stories of the week. All of this after the break. Do stay with us. Welcome back to Channel's Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, from our studios here in London. In a moment, I'll be catching up with University of Cambridge student Anissa Latouche. But until then, here's a breakdown of some of the biggest business news stories of the week. Gucci parent company Kering and Saudi Arabia's public investment fund are understood to be mulling the acquisition of a stake in the luxury retailer Selfridges. The development follows the financial collapse of Signa, one of two companies that had purchased the iconic department store in a joint venture in 2022. According to The Telegraph, co-owner Central Group is seeking a new partner now that Signa's shares are up for sale. Interested parties are believed to be waiting for a full outcome from Signa's collapse before they formally declare an interest in the stake, which would be worth around £2 billion. Evergrande, the world's most indebted property developer, has been accused of fraudulently inflating its revenues by £62 billion. The China Securities Regulatory Commission said Hui Ka-yan, the group's founder, instructed other personnel to falsely inflate accounts in 2019 and 2020, and revenues were overstated by more than £62 billion. Hui was given a £5.1 million fine and has received a lifetime ban from participating in China's stock markets. Evergrande is being fined £456 million. Superstar singer-songwriter Beyoncé has broadened country music's listenership, according to new data from Spotify. Texas Hold'em, the debut single from her upcoming country album, Cowboy Carter, made Beyoncé the first black woman to claim the #1 spot on Billboard's Hot Country chart, and subsequently ignited streaming numbers for songs by other black female country artists too. Country star Tana Adele saw streams of her track Buckle Bunny soar 305%. Acceptance for artists of colour in country music remains a challenge, with some fans of the genre refraining from a warm welcome. Now to my final story. A new web series has just been released, shining the light on what it is like being an ethnic minority student at the University of Cambridge. Fresh data has revealed that graduates of the top UK universities are more likely to find work than those from lower-ranked institutions, which is why access and inclusion at these institutions is fundamental. Well, for more on this, I'm now being joined by the co-director of the film and a University of Cambridge student, Anissa Latouche. Anissa Latouche, thank you so much for joining me on Channel's Business Global. It's a really important subject for our viewers because foreign students, what is happening to them in the UK is a hot topic of discussion in Nigeria. But some of the conversations we don't speak about is elitism in our universities. And I want you to talk to me about the reasons why you put together this documentary with just showing clips, some really moving statements, actually. And what were the most interesting findings that you discovered during filming?
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for that question. I think that I found it quite interesting and also reassuring and reflective to see the multitude of experiences that were had by students of colour. I think there were definitely some people that were quite shocked that not all of us had had the same experience. And I think this was something that myself and my co-directors, Tirza and Ollie, definitely felt going in and knew going in that we wanted to reflect the multitude of experiences that were had. I think one thing that I found quite interesting was how much where you came from impacted your perceptions of yourself and where you fit in once you got there. For example, people who've watched it will have seen the difference between Reve and Tirza, Reve and Zia. Zia comes from London. No, Zia comes from Kent. And so she does not have a background in which she grew up around a lot of people that looked like her. And so she came here and she was like, wow, there's such a community here for me. Whereas Remy came from London and she grew up around so many people that looked like her. And she was much more shocked that there weren't as many people like her here, and she felt like she had to really carve out a space for herself. So I think that was quite interesting. Also, the difference in how people felt reflected in academia, I think, was quite interesting. But I think one of the things that I found the most interesting, that I also loved hearing about, was how, in their respective ways, all of these students were breaking the boundaries of what they thought they'd be able to do during their space here, or what they would have been pigeonholed into doing, and then what they expanded it into and did for themselves.
Absolutely. Given how high ranked the University of Cambridge is, I wouldn't be surprised that once they're there, they're able to dust their shoulders off and make the best for themselves. It is a really important discussion, and I'm happy that you said, depending on your socio-economic demographic, or, the area in which you grew up, is going to shape your experience. I just want to ask you a blunt question, actually. Do you think Oxbridge is doing good with diversity and inclusion? I know there's more to be done, but do you think that they're doing the best that they can?
Well, I think there's layers to that, to answering that. I think that it has gotten better. Just if you look at the demographic, it has gotten more diverse, but that is because they were starting very close to zero. The issue with Cambridge, well, one of the great things about Cambridge, but it comes with its challenges, is that it's a collegiate system, which means that every college has a slightly different way of doing things. And so trying to get university-wide impact can actually be quite tricky. And often it's really important that colleges liaise with each other and look at colleges that are doing really well and actually try and implement more of what those colleges are doing. One of the big things for that is definitely in terms of access and funding. I think that colleges are doing better at access and trying to outreach to students from marginalized backgrounds, from socioeconomically deprived backgrounds. But I think there's still a way to go in actually educating students applying on the different types of bursaries and scholarships and essay prizes that they can get access to once they're here. Because I think that also just puts a lot of people off even the first hurdle, which is applying, because that in itself is a really tedious process. And I think that students need support through that. The school that you went to is going to impact how easy it is for you to go through that application process. Do you have teachers who have already done it themselves that can help you with that know exactly what a personal statement that will get you in looks like, knows exactly what an interview sounds like and feels like, that can mimic that for you so you can prepare? That all varies. And I think that universities, especially Oxbridge, have to do better at bridging that gap. I think that when it comes to also in the academic side of things, representing students in terms of the literature that they read, the people teaching them, is really important. And I don't think many people will be strangers to the news recently of a faculty member in the that was in the philosophy faculty who was exposed for having very racist views. That is going to impact their ability to teach. That is going to impact their ability to supervise. They may just not ask the Black students questions, and they'll ask non-Black students questions because they've already undermined or underestimated the ability of the Black students. And so I think that the university has so many layers to being able to actually enable access to students from varying socioeconomic backgrounds. And also once they're in, how are we protecting them and how are we making sure that they're getting an experience educationally and extracurricularly that's on par with their peers? I think one of the best things that's come out of this docuseries is the amount of people who have said things like this are what's going to help. Things like doing the docuseries platforming voices that maybe have not been heard in the past. In terms of where people can access it, it's available on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel called Cambridge Uncut, and we'd appreciate so much people just sharing it. We love hearing feedback as well. We've got more episodes to come, which is really exciting.
But it's really insightful. Please keep up the hard work. And as you said, document, platform. It's very important because it's not just impacting you, it's impacting those coming after you. Anissa Latouche, who is a filmmaker and geography student at the University of Cambridge. Thank you so much for your time today. Well, sadly, that's all we have time for today. But as always, do get in touch with your comments and suggestions. I'll see you at the same time next week for more in-depth business analysis on Channel's Business Global. Goodbye.